Dreams are considered false. There's no validity to dreams. I'll give you an interesting example. For those who learn Rambam, we learned this halacha recently. If you have a dream in the middle of the night, and some old man comes to you and says, listen, you live on Wilshire Boulevard, yeah. Behind your house there's a garden. Go into the garden and go to this and this spot and you'll dig and you'll find a treasure. Take that treasure and go to La Cienega Boulevard and you'll find so and so. Give him the treasure because I stole it from his grandfather. If you have a dream, someone comes to you and says, you'll find treasure and it belongs to Shmerel. And you get up in the morning and you take your shovel and you dig and you find the treasure. You find it there. Api halacha, you do not have to return it. Someone comes to you in a dream and says, please take this and give it to him, and you find it, you can keep it. It was true enough to help you find the treasure, but it's not true enough to obligate you to go and do it. That's the halacha, that's the din in Shulchan Aruch. That's the halacha in Rambam.
But why?
Because halacha does not give validity to dreams. Finished. However you explain the fact that it helped you find treasure, there's no halachic requirement for you to return it. But there are occasions when a dream is nevuah. And that's another story. If a person has a dream and it's madrega of nevuah, then he has to do what the Navi said, what the dream told him, because that's God talking to you. That's not just the wires getting crossed and things funny happening because the celestial bodies are getting confused up there. When Hashem speaks to you, and when you experience nevuah, understand, there is a certitude, there's a certainty that Hashem is talking to you, to the mystics, because you're experiencing godliness. And to the philosophers, you're experiencing an image, you're seeing a gestalt, you're seeing a picture, you're seeing a form. And there's a power that makes you understand and know this is emes. This is true. I think I mentioned this to you in the previous class, that the previous Rebbe asked the Rebbe Rashab, the previous Rebbe asked his father, the Rebbe Rashab, how is Mashiach going to know he's Mashiach? Did I tell you this? Did I tell you this?
No.
Of course I told you this.
No.
I never told this to you? You don't remember.
Let's see.
The Friedrich Rebbe asked his father, the Rebbe Rashab, how Mashiach is, he's Mashiach. So the Rebbe Rashab answered his son with a question. When Hashem told Avraham Avinu to take his son to the Akedah, take his own son, put him in his Mizbech and kill him, how did he know it was real? And then the Rebbe Rashab tells the Friedrich Rebbe, there's levels of Nevuah. But the greatest Nevi'im, they have no doubt. They're sure. Which means Nevuah is more ephemeral, it's more spiritual than we think. It's possible to experience Nevuah, and the degree of certitude can be different from person to person. The greatest Nevi'im have no doubt. But when you experience a Nevuah in a dream, that's not a dream. That's a message from God that you got to listen to. But if you're stamazor, you have a dream and you're not a Navi, halachically, what you should do, I'm not telling you, but according to Jewish law, you have no obligation to return it. And there's some wonderful stories. There's some cute stories. The first story is really disturbing. About 3 weeks after our Rebbe got married, our Rebbe married the previous Rebbe's daughter, Rebbe Achei Temimim, whose yahrzeit we just had a week ago, 10 days ago, 12 days ago. 3 weeks after the wedding, Achei Tevis, Chamisha B'Tevis, the Rebbe wrote his first entry in the journal was Achei Tevis. Nichnasti al pi akriya, he starts. I went into my father-in-law because I was called. I was summoned. And the previous Rebbe said to me, the Rebbe, the Shvei, was married 3 weeks. I have regards from your brother Label. The Rebbe had 2 brothers. There were 3 boys in the house. Mendel, Bedel, Label. The Rebbe was the oldest. The youngest was Label. The middle brother was Bedel. Mem Beis Lamed. Mendel, Bedel, Label. So the Rebbe in 1928 was 26, his brother was about 25, 23. So the previous Rebbe says to the Rebbe, I have regards from your brother. So the Rebbe says to him, you got a letter from him? He says, he was still living in Russia. He says, no. You got a telegram from him? He says, no. So how do I have regards from my brother? We were together in a dream. Yeah? The Friedrich Rebbe tells the Rebbe, we were together in a dream. And he proceeds to tell him the dream. That he sees his father, the Rebbe Rashab, and the Rebbe Rashab thanks him that when our Rebbe got married, the previous Rebbe put on a shtreimel. The Rebbe did not wear a shtreimel. The Friedrich Rebbe wore a regular hat. When he became a Rebbe, he wore a hat. He didn't wear a shtreimel. The first time the previous Rebbe put on one of those fur hats was by our Rebbe's chasana, which was 8 years after he became a Rebbe. The first time he put on a shtreimel. So his father tells him in the dream, thank you for the shtreimel, thank you for the hat. And then the Rebbe Rashab sees the Rebbe's brother Label and says, who's that? The Rebbe and his brothers never saw the Rebbe Rashab. Their father didn't let him go to Lubavitch, which is really weird. So the Rebbe Rashab said, who's that? He didn't recognize him. Come closer, come closer. And the Friedrich Rebbe says, I think he was biting his nails, and he had his hat down, blocking his face a little bit. And he makes a couple of steps forward, and the Rebbe Rashab says, I know you. They never met, I know who you are. And then the Rebbe Rashab in the dream says, Achei Chassidus. Shchein don't even know, Achei Chassidus. And the previous Rebbe says to our Rebbe, ask your brother for the details. Ask your brother for the details. Meaning, the Friedrich Rebbe was sure that the Rebbe's brother would have had the same dream, and he would be able to recall the Maimed and tell it to our Rebbe. You understand? The Friedrich Rebbe called in our Rebbe. He says, I have regards for your brother. We were together, but the Rebbe was saying in a dream. Now, what kind of nonsense is that? The Vart is, it's called the Chalaim Emes. Most dreams are nonsense. A true dream is a level of Ruach HaKodesh. And the Friedrich Rebbe knew about himself that when he sees his father in a dream, it's a chizayin laila. He calls the Rambam's words, chizayin laila. A vision at night. So he tells the Rebbe, I have regards from your brother, and you can ask him the details, he'll know. That's the first story. What's the second story?
Hold on, did he know the details?
That we don't know the end of the story. There's no record. We don't know. His brother left Russia a few years after. This was 1928. The Rebbe's brother left Russia about 1930, 31. And he lived with the Rebbe in Berlin. The Nazis beat him up, you know that? The Rebbe's brother was beaten to a pulp. There was a rally, and they all did this. And Label didn't do it. They almost killed him. They beat him to a pulp. They beat him, the Nazis, Machon. But the Rebbe was with his brother in Berlin. Then he moved to Israel. And it's possible that they discussed it. It's possible they discussed it, but there's no record. Then, a second story, that when the Friedrich Rebbe passed away, he was a famous chassid, his name was Rabbi Kazanovsky, who had a dream of the Friedrich Rebbe, where the Friedrich Rebbe tells him in the dream, Friedrich Rebbe asked him, why is everyone so sad? In the dream, why is everyone so sad? So Rabbi Kazanovsky tells the previous Rebbe, we're all sad because you left us. You abandoned us. So the Friedrich Rebbe says, but I left my son-in-law, I left the Rebbe. And Rabbi Kazanovsky says, yeah, but he keeps on saying that you're still the Rebbe. He refuses to take the position. He says, you're still the Rebbe. So in his dream, the previous Rebbe turns to our Rebbe, and he tells him, in Ma titzak elai, Favos shreist du wegen des Kasches zu mir, daber bnei Yisrael, zog Chassidus zu Yidden, wie Yisrael, weil sie fahren and kegen Mashiach, and they will travel to Mashiach. In other words, in the dream, the previous Rebbe, why are you screaming that people should be connected to me? You should speak your own Chassidus, and they'll go towards Mashiach Tzidkenu. So Kazanovsky got up in the morning, he ran to 770, he ran into the Rebbe, he told the Rebbe the dream. Aha! I got a story for you. The Rebbe made him repeat it twice, which was normal. The Rebbe made him repeat something twice. If he told him something, the Friedrich wanted to hear it a second time. And when he finished, the Rebbe said, that's not a real dream. And Kazanovsky said, why not? He says, because if it would have been a real dream, I would have had it also, because I was in the dream. That was the Rebbe's way of weaseling out of it. But I don't know. You know, so you have two stories. One story is where a Rebbe knows for sure. He says, we had a dream, you can ask your brother, he was there too. And he knew that he would know. And the zweite Maise is where the Rebbe tells somebody, it's not a real dream, because if it would have been a real dream, I would have had it too. So Kazanovsky says, how come I had such a dream? How come I had such a dream? So the Rebbe says, you were probably thinking about it all day long. You concocted it in your imagination, so you dreamt it at night. I believe the Rebbe was weaseling out of it, but the Rebbe knew that there was credibility in that dream. And one last story about dreams that's mind-blowing. The first Lubavitch Rebbe was the Alter Rebbe, right? The Chabad Alter Rebbe was Chabad. He wasn't in Lubavitch. He was in Lozhin and Liadi. The second Chabad Rebbe was the Middle Rebbe. And the third Chabad Rebbe was the Rebbe of Tzemach Tzedek. And the Rebbe had his name. The name was Menachem Mendel. When the second Lubavitch Rebbe passed away, the Middle Rebbe passed away, Tzemach Tzedek did not want to be a Rebbe. He didn't want the job. And he sent them to Shmerel and Berel and Chaim and anybody but him. He'd go to anybody he wants, just don't ask me. And the Chassidim went to different people. One of the possible candidates was a Jew who lived in Lubavitch, who was called in the house of the Rebbe the Fetter Yosale. He was a big tzaddik. He was a big gaon. He was a big chassid. And he was an uncle of the Tzemach Tzedek because the Tzemach Tzedek's father married a second time. Tzemach Tzedek's mother died when he was 3. Tzemach Tzedek's mother passed away when he was 3. Alter Rebbe raised him. His father remarried. Tzemach Tzedek had half brothers and sisters. His father remarried, and the second Zivig had children. And this Fetter Yosele was an uncle of Tzemach Tzedek because of whom his father married the second time, second Zivig. And they had a chavrusa. They learned together, the two of them. Fetter Yosele was older than the Tzemach Tzedek. Tzemach Tzedek was around 38. When Mitzvah passed away, let's say he was 50. They learned together. One day they were learning, and they had a question, and they had no answer. They had a question, no answer. So they went away, finished. At night, both of them dreamt, that the Alter Rebbe came to them in a dream, and he walked into their chavrusa, and he heard their question, and he gave them the answer. The Fetter, I think it's labeled. Yes, we're going with Yosel. The Fetter Yosel wakes up in the morning. He remembers the dream. He remembers that the Alter Rebbe gave him an answer, but he can't remember what the answer was. He walks into his nephew, and on the Tzemach Tzedek's desk, the answer is already written up. Tzemach Tzedek woke up in the morning and wrote it down. So the Fetter Yosel says to the Tzemach Tzedek, so who's supposed to be Rebbe, me or you? They both had a dream. They both saw the same thing. But he didn't remember what the Rebbe said. And the Tzemach Tzedek wrote it down. This is, who's more qualified to be a Rebbe? You understand? This is Madregas. And one last story about dreams, which is absolutely incredible, which I've told the story many, many times. I had a school teacher who I loved very much. Because he loved me, but I think he loved everybody. You know, I think I wasn't special, I just felt special because he just had this way about him. Mm-hmm. I learned in his class in 1976, it's almost 50 years ago. And I'm talking 25, 30 years after I left his class, whenever I would meet him. I was 10 years old. He would talk to me, he would tell me stories, he would share things with me. Very generous man. Very generous man, unbelievably humble. So he told me, Rabbi Fuchs, told me that when he learned in Atvat, he lived in Poland, in the yeshiva in Berlin. So a Yid came from Russia, a big Lubavitcher Chazan, came from Russia, his name was Beryl Garfinkel. But everybody in Russia was called by their city. He was called Beryl Kurnitzer. Kurnitzer is not in Rusland. He was probably 50 years old, and he was a bachelor, he never got married. He was single. Why didn't he get married? Because he had tuberculosis. He had on his lungs tuberculosis. Tuberculosis, I don't understand tuberculosis, but it's a time bomb. It could be dormant for a long time, and then overnight, boom, you keel over and you die. So he didn't get married. He was a bacher. When he came from Russia, he was a very, very big Talmud Chacham. He knew Shas by heart. He told me, Rabbi Fuchs, that he wanted the boys to memorize everything by heart. He knew Kol HaTorah Kol HaBar. Incredible memory. Everything had to be memorized. So when he came from Russia, he didn't need a lot of money, but they needed to give him a job, and he was a good person to have around. So they made up a position. He called him the boich. He was the tester. But it was good for him to be around. The Bacham saw a real Jew, and he raised their level of learning. He challenged them, and so on. So this Beryl Kurnitzer lived all by himself, a single guy, and he suffered with his lungs. So once in a while he'd have a flare-up, he'd be in bed, he'd be sick, then he'd feel better, he'd come back to the yeshiva. So the previous Rebbe's oldest daughter, whose name was Chana Gerari, took care of him. She was very nurturing. The Rebbe's older sister was very nurturing. She was very maternal by nature. And she would visit him, and she'd bring him cream. In Poland, it was a very poor country. You couldn't get cream, sour cream, push it. And citrus fruits, and people with tuberculosis. This is what he told me. I don't know if it was true then, I don't know if it's true now, but they need to get citrus fruits and cream. It's good for tuberculosis. And she would buy it, she would find it, she'd spend a lot of money, she'd bring it to him as a remedy, as a refuah. One day she walks into him, he was not feeling well, and he tells her, the Frierdiker Rebbe's oldest daughter, I had a dream and I saw your father. So the Frierdiker Rebbe in a dream. And the Frierdiker Rebbe was alive and well at that time. And he said in the dream, a Maimer Chassidus, on the pasuk, Rafa'enu ad Hashem ve'erafe, heal me. Rafa'enu Hashem ve'erafe, heal me. And he tells her, and I remember the Maimer. I have the Maimer. You know what that means? Tzemach Tzedek's uncle didn't have the Maimed, and a Tomim from Lubavitch had the Maimed. He woke up in the morning, he had a dream, he saw the Frierdiker Rebbe say Chassidus, and he remembered it. So when she went home, she went into her father and says, Tatich, I given by battle. I went into battle, and it said, when there a dir gezed in Acholim, he saw you in a dream, and you said, a Maimed Chassidus, Refein Hashem Ve'irav. So the Frierdiker Rebbe says to his daughter, at her the Maimed. Does he have it? Did he get it? Does he remember it? And she says, at her the Maimed. He remembers it. So the Frierdiker Rebbe says, Eba zeh zol agei nochem ol zum doctor. If that's the case, let him go back again to the doctor. There's a man who suffered with tuberculosis probably for 30 years. So he goes to the doctor, they do an x-ray, and there's no tuberculosis. And it doesn't go away. So the doctors couldn't believe it. So they took out the old x-rays. And it was gone. The old x-rays were no longer showing the tuberculosis. Because it says in Chassidus that some healing heals you from now on. Some healing heals you that you were never sick. The old x-ray, which had shown tuberculosis for years, was clean. And he got married. He got married. He even had children. Unfortunately, the Nazis got him, but he actually got married. Amaisim dreams, yeah? So we're not talking here, this is talking about the Eibishter. One form of the vu is in a dream called Chizoyin Laila, a vision at night. Those dreams you gotta follow, because those are not dreams. Those are prophecy. Let's continue to read.